Well, if I was to take or ask for a show of hands of everyone who was completely shocked by the words of our gospel reading this morning, what do you think would happen? Do you think most hands would go up? Well, I kind of doubt it. We were talking about that at Men's Square Bible Study on Wednesday. And the thing of it is, I think, is that we have heard these words so often that the spark and the shock factor have sort of gone out of them. I mean, after all, we know Jesus is about being for the poor and being for the weak and being for the meek. And so we're not really surprised to hear these words. But if you could just imagine yourself in that crowd that heard Jesus say these things for the very first time, what do you suppose you might be like? Do you suppose you might be one of those who is mourning or poor in spirit or feels meek and lowly? Because if you think about it, Jesus often had those following him that were in need of something. Some sort of healing, some sort of word of hope, or word of promise. I mean, think about the very first disciples that Jesus called to be his closest followers. They weren't the powerful. They were of a lowly state, mere fishermen. And so how might, if you were in that situation, how might that word of hope and promise come as a shock, come as good news, amazing news, that the kingdom of heaven is for me? Well, maybe we have a hard time relating to these words, and maybe that's why they're not as shocking. I mean, after all, being meek and lowly is not the way to get ahead in this world. And so we're surprised, maybe, that Jesus says those that are not of some sort of amazing qualification are the ones that Jesus asked to follow him. Now, I have to admit that I was rather shocked this week when I was reminded of some Greek lesson. And that is that the voice that this writing, these blessed are theys, the voice that is in is not the imperative voice. The imperative voice is the you must voice. Rather, it's the voice of the indicative. This is the way it is, or the way things are. And reminded that first is the blessed. The blessed. God's face is turned towards. And so, in thinking about it being an indicative voice, there's almost this celebratory nature, this good news that we do matter in God's eyes. We are seen through God's eyes. And that it's not who we are because of what we do, but who we are because of who loves us, whose face is turned towards us. Blessed are they. And probably at some time in each and every one of our lives, we can relate in some way to those who are hurting and those who are in need. Well, the other piece that I think is important, that another little piece of the Greek lesson, is that there are a couple of imperatives. And those come at the very end. Rejoice and be glad. Rejoice and be glad you must be when people revile you and persecute you for the sake of my name. And I thought about how that then means that somehow the message that God turns the world upside down, including us, is getting across to the world that somehow we, yes, are the target and we are persecuted when people see a difference, not only in us, but a difference in the way that God sees things, that God's vision is seen that way, that things are more clearer through God's eyes. And so, the promise that is there is that God is with us even when we're hurting, even when we're the ones who are meek or know that we're not pure in heart. God is with us. And with God, then we are able and we are called to walk with justice and mercy and seek righteousness